My first love left me soaked in the rain all night on the rooftop, just so his queen could secure a spot via endorsement. I pushed through a high fever to take the exam, and yet he blamed me. Your grades are so good, can't you let Alice have it just this once? But he forgot, he was the one who once begged me to go to the same college as him. It was him. Daisy, have you seen that trending video on TikTok? I paused my study and looked at my desk mate. What video? I asked. Next month is Christmas Eve, and the video says if you watch fireworks with the person you like, you'll grow old together. I chuckled, replying, it's not that easy to grow old together. If it were that easy, there wouldn't be so many heartbroken people in the world. I go back to my studies. Winning the gold medal in this competition can earn me an endorsement spot. It's important to me. I heard Alice invited Jack to watch fireworks. Aren't you close with Jack? Did he say yes? My deskmate asked, holding my arm tightly. My heart sank as I subconsciously asked, who is Alice? You've been away for training, you might not know Alice is the new transfer student. She's been chasing Jack pretty fiercely. The bell rang, and my deskmate said dismissively, we'll talk after class. Jack was the student council president, smart and handsome, with no shortage of admirers. I should have been used to it, but I felt an unexpected panic. Throughout the class, I didn't catch a word the teacher said. Before school let out, I met Alice. The last period was gym, and on Wednesdays, our class joined Jack's for gym. After a few laps, the gym teacher allowed us to do whatever we wanted. I wasn't very athletic, and after 3 laps, I was red-faced and out of breath, sitting in the shade. Jack, after changing into his basketball jersey, handed me a bottle of water, grinning, Daisy, your stamina is awful. He's called me Daisy since we were kids, saying it's my special nickname. Taking a sip of water, I hesitated before asking, Jack, is someone chasing you recently? His eyes darkened slightly, showing a hint of displeasure. Why mention that annoying Alice? There were tons of girls chasing Jack at school, but I didn't even say it was Alice. After a pause, I looked at Jack. Jack, actually Just then, a sweet female voice interrupted me. I looked toward the sound. A pretty and lively girl was leaning out the classroom window, her hands cupped around her mouth as she shouted, Jack. I like you. The golden sunset cast a glow over Alice, like she was a little sun. There were many pursuing Jack, but Alice was the first to be so audacious. Jack, do you want to watch fireworks with me? I instinctively looked at the boy next to me, seeing a silhouette of the girl in his amber eyes. And in the distance, the girl's eyes were smiling, like a pair straight from a romance novel. I tightened my grip on my water bottle, then let it loose, feeling helpless. As if he sensed my gaze, Jack turned and muttered, so bold, can't compare to my Daisy's cuteness. To prove his point, Jack reached out and pinched my cheek. I almost believed him, if it weren't for his blushing, shrimp-red ears and slightly trembling fingers. His reaction reminded me of a summer night in sophomore year. I've known him for 18 years, never seeing him so needy. Daisy, why didn't you come to watch my game yesterday? He was drunk, grabbing my arm and cornering me in the hallway. He was strong, and I winced. Jack, why are you acting crazy? Seeing my tears, he hurriedly wiped my face. Why cry? You laugh with that Richard guy, but cry with me? Amidst the restless summer breeze, I caught a whiff of jealousy in his words. Jack, are you jealous? I smiled, teasing him. His eyes widened, ears blushing crimson. With determination, he softly said, Daisy, why don't we go to the same college and be together for life? His words were like a pebble, creating ripples in my heart. Do you even know what you're saying? I asked, unsure if he was just drunk or if he meant something else, but Jack's eyes shone as he held my face. Of course, I know. Heart pounding like a drum, whether mine or his, I couldn't tell. That night changed how I felt about Jack. I lost track of how long I hadn't seen Jack. I heard his name again while getting water in the cafeteria. 2 girls walked by, discussing something excitedly. Did you hear? Alice from class 4 ran into some trouble, and Jack, who never breaks rules, got into a fight for her. Of course, I heard. Seems like they both got taken by the cops. My head was buzzing, and I didn't care about the scalding water on my hand. I turned off the faucet and rushed to the police station. December was freezing. I ran outside without my coat for about 10 minutes, losing a slipper along the way. But none of that coldness compared to seeing Jack pin Alice against the wall and kiss her. Jack wiped blood from his mouth, and in a tone full of possession, said, "Alice, now no one can bully you, not even me." Alice pursed her lips, hesitantly asking, "Jack, do you really like me? Or is it that Daisy I've heard about?" Jack's eyes darkened, interrupting her, "She's just a friend. I never liked her." "Really?" Alice questioned, still unsure. "Absolutely." Jack tapped her nose, pulling her in for a deep kiss. Mist clouded my vision. I didn't even notice when they left. The burn on my hand started to sting along with my heart, making it hard to breathe. Yeah, he never said he liked me. We're just friends, right? But since when do friends get jealous, beg to go to the same college, and talk about spending a lifetime together? Sometimes, words said easily by one become the truth for another. I sniffed, sinking onto a bench by the road. Glass pierced my foot, bleeding, mingled with dust and pebbles. I thought, I never want to see Jack again. I never expected Jack to text me on Christmas Eve. "Daisy, wanna hang out on Christmas Eve?" For some reason, just seeing Daisy made my eyes sting. I thought about it and replied, "You have a girlfriend now, we should keep our distance." After sending the message, I turned off my phone. I had a competition the next day, and I didn't want any unnecessary distractions messing with my mindset. Around noon, I saw 2 more messages from Jack. "I need to talk to you. I'll be waiting at Moonlight Plaza at 7:30 tonight. Alice knows, and she'd like to meet you too." Why would Alice want to see me? I hesitated for a long time and didn't reply. By evening, around 7, I decided to show up, as Jack's first love. The lights flickered, and Jack, in a black coat, leaned against the wall, his head bowed, looking conflicted. "Where's Alice?" I asked as I approached. Jack didn't speak but took my arm and led me to the rooftop. As soon as we stepped onto the rooftop, countless fireworks lit up the night sky like stars scattered all around. Backlit, Jack got straight to the point. "Alice struggles with math. She can't get into top schools without this competition. So, Daisy, could you drop out of the math competition? You tricked me to come out here for this?" I was stunned, staring at the person I'd known for years who suddenly seemed so foreign. Or maybe, I never really knew him at all. Jack leaned on the railing, looking helpless. "You don't know how hard Alice has worked for this. She's been losing sleep over it. I hate seeing her like that. I've seen both your grades. You two are the most likely to win gold this year." I laughed in disbelief. "Jack, are you so love-struck you've become daft? Do you think it's easy for anyone competing? Just because we're friends, I should step aside for her? If that's how it is, I'd rather not be friends with you." He grabbed my arm, frustration in his eyes. "Daisy, why are you being so selfish? Just one small gesture, and you'll easily get into college next year with your grades. Why the need to compete with Alice?" He spoke as if I were guilty of something terrible for not backing down. A deep sense of powerlessness came over me, and I realized Jack's idea of fairness was skewed totally in Alice's favor. I stayed silent. After a long pause, Jack sneered slightly, his expression turning cold. "Daisy, I must have been blind to misjudge you." He stormed off, slamming the rooftop door behind him. Rain started pouring down, mixing with my tears as it hit my neck, making me shiver. As the rain intensified, I pulled out a large apple from my pocket. Back in elementary school, my family was so poor due to my mom's medical bills that we could barely put food on the table. On Christmas Eve, I sat in the corner of the classroom, enviously watching other kids exchange gifts, while I could only stare at my worn-out school uniform. "Daisy, Merry Christmas." Jack had taken out a gift wrapped in plastic with blue flowers on it and placed it on my desk. I don't have money to get you a gift, I mumbled sadly. Jack ruffled my hair with a bright smile. That's all right. I'll give you a gift every Christmas Eve from now on. He wasn't lying, he'd done it for 17 years. But I was guessing this year's would be a no-show. When I tried to leave, I found the rooftop door wouldn't budge no matter how hard I pulled. A bad feeling crept up on me, and I called out, Jack, are you still out there? The only response was the continuous sound of rain. It was clear he had left. I rushed to the edge of the rooftop. The rain had cleared the streets, and because the area was remote, there were hardly any passers-by. In a panic, I fished out my phone. Big raindrops pounded the screen, causing the display to jump erratically. There was no shelter from the rain, and glancing at my phone battery showed only 3% left. I had to crouch down, shielding the phone as I tried to make a call. As soon as I connected, the phone died completely. The rain poured harder, soaking every inch of my clothing. Despite shouting for help, nobody noticed me. I ended up huddled in a corner, shivering violently and clutching the futile hope. Did Jack purposely lock me out here, or was it an accident? Whatever the reason, he'd hurt me already. I wouldn't give up my spot in the competition, not then and definitely not now. Determined to find a way out, I noticed the building had only 4 floors. Carefully, I decided to use the drain pipe to climb down. After taking off my heavy, soaked coat, I clung to the railing, cautiously making my way down. I was almost at the 2nd floor when the wind hit, sending shivers through my body. My foot slipped, and I fell like a broken kite. The cold, biting wind rattled the shutters along the street, and my limbs felt rigid, making any movement nearly impossible. Gathering my last bit of strength, I curled up slightly until I fainted by the roadside. After the competition ended, Alice ran into Jack's arms, crying miserably, Jack, I couldn't solve a big question. I probably won't win gold this time. Jack wanted to console her, but she ran off, tears staining her cheeks. I was still feverish, my head pounding as I limped past Jack, who reached out to stop me. Daisy. His gaze fixed on my pale face, surprise flickering in his eyes. What happened to you? For some reason, hearing Jack's voice only made my headache worse. Let go of me. My voice was hoarse, like a small, angry animal. Angrily, Jack raised his voice, Daisy, what's your deal? You're so good at school. Can't you let Alice have this once? Seeing Alice cry, do you know how much it hurts me? I couldn't hold back my frustration anymore and threw the book at Jack's face. Why does she expect others to keep making concessions because she's not doing well academically? Can't she just work harder herself? Was it me who stopped her from doing the last problem or forced her to get distracted by dating? So just because she's upset, does that mean I deserve to be locked on the rooftop in the rain all night and freeze to death? I was so worked up, I bent over, coughing hard, feeling like there were blades cutting my throat. What are you talking about? When did I? Jack instinctively reached out to pat my back, and I reflexively shoved him away. Jack lost his balance, fell into the fountain, and got his clothes drenched. People passing by heard the commotion and looked over. Jack shouted at me, embarrassed, Daisy, are you crazy? If I talk to you again, I'm an idiot. I couldn't be bothered to listen to his ranting, so I walked away without hesitation. After that day, Jack never came to find me again. I went to the hospital to ask who had brought me in that night, and the doctor said it was a tall, handsome guy left in a hurry, leaving behind a school jacket. Coincidentally, he's from my school too. While waiting for my 4 drip in the hospital room, I gazed out the window in a daze. If no one had found me that day, would I really have frozen to death on the street? That thought alone terrified me. On the day the results came out, I didn't let anyone down and won the gold medal in the math competition. At the same time, I found a letter in my desk. It was from Jack. An apology letter. I barely glanced at it before throwing it into the trash. What does he think he's doing? Hitting you and then offering a sweet apology, thinking he's got me wrapped around his finger? It's laughable. Forgiving someone after being hurt by them, that's just being a fool. The principal had me fill out a form and congratulated me on getting a guaranteed university spot. I truly felt happy for myself, even if my condition wasn't the best. Hard work always paves the way. On the way to the hospital to continue my 4-drip, I ran into Alice. She dropped her usual innocent act, angrily gripping my shoulder and shoved me against a tree. Her long nails nearly dug into my shoulder as I winced, raising my eyebrows and smirking at her. "You lost." She sneered back, "So what? The person you care about most now likes me. He can't stand you. Daisy, you haven't won at all. So Jack was just a pawn you used to beat me?" Alice's words made me nauseated, like I'd swallowed a dead fly. I couldn't understand how she could do something like this just for a spot in a university. Of course, Alice smirked, but before she could say more, we heard a teacher's warning. "Teacher's coming. Wait till next time," Alice threatened before walking off. Watching her retreating figure, I only felt bad for Jack. He thought he found love but was just used as a tool. None of us noticed that Jack was standing by the tree nearby, having overheard the entire conversation. Alice wouldn't let me go. She exposed my wounds for everyone to see, publicly humiliating me. I found this out while giving speeches in different classes about my study tips. As the only student this year getting a direct pass to university, the principal wanted me to share my experiences with all the classes. While I was on stage, the teacher waited outside. My classmates whispered among themselves, and I had no idea what they were discussing. Initially, I assumed they were talking about me securing the guaranteed spot. But when I spoke to the worst class in the school, they mocked me with sharp words and disrespectful looks. "Hey, I heard your mom's a nut job, and she even hacked your dad, right?" A guy in the front row said loudly, as if cracking a joke, with his legs propped up. My grip on the speech tightened, my ears buzzing. The class burst into laughter, and I stood there awkwardly, unsure of what to do. Jack was the only one who knew about this. No matter how bad he was, he would never make fun of it. The only possibility was that I had offended Alice, and she exposed my story to everyone. No way, anyone can get guaranteed admission these days. Yeah, I heard mental illness is hereditary. What if she gets mad and kills someone here? So scary. Why's a nut even in school? Get out of our class already. I felt stuck to the floor, like my feet were set in concrete. I mumbled, "You're not allowed to talk about my mom." But my voice was drowned out by their chatter. "What are you all yelling about?" At this point, a book flew at the guy who talked about my mom, hitting him on the head. He was scared and lowered his head, continuing to play his game. The class came to a sudden halt, as the boy who threw the book stood up from the back row, kicked over a chair, and walked straight out. After he left, nobody dared to mention my mom again. Choking back tears, I finished my speech. Before leaving, I turned back at the class. My mom's not crazy. And by the way, learning to shut up is a kind of manners. Heading back to class, I saw Jack standing at the door, looking like he'd lost his soul, like a sad dog tied to my home's front gate. When he saw me, he quickly ran over. "Daisy," I checked the surveillance. It was Alice who followed me and then locked the door. I interrupted, "Don't call me Daisy. It's disgusting." It was really gross, both physically and emotionally. He glanced down sadly. "Your leg must have hurt that day, right?" "I'm sorry, I didn't know she was like that." "But I didn't hurt you. Can you forgive me?" Jack looked at me full of hope, wanting some hint of forgiveness or compassion from my face. But I gave him nothing, not even a glance. Yeah, we both misjudged people. He couldn't see through Alice, and I could not see through him. I laughed sarcastically, pushing past him. As I brushed by, I stopped. "So? By exposing my wounds to others, aren't you hurting me too?" Jack bit his lip, opening his mouth as if to explain, but found that he had nothing to say. "Jack, don't show up in front of me again." As I passed, I saw Jack's shoulders shake slightly. He regretted it, but Daisy was done looking back. After oversleeping at home, I hurriedly rushed to get a ride to school. As soon as I walked into the school gate, I saw a teacher scolding someone. It was that guy who threw a textbook in class. He had his back to me, not wearing the school uniform, just a black jacket. Vincent, it's bad enough you're late, but you couldn't even bother to wear your uniform? Even if your dad donates a few buildings to the school, you should at least try to fit in, don't you think? And come on, helping an old lady cross the street? That excuse wouldn't fool a toddler. I stopped in my tracks, unsure whether to walk away or stay and listen. It felt like I had stumbled upon some big secret. Sir, I overslept, that's why I'm late, I muttered, a bit embarrassed as I walked past them. Vincent glanced at me. When the teacher saw it was me, he smiled and said, "You've been busy with competitions lately, it's understandable. Go on to class." Then he turned back to Vincent and ordered, "You, go run 5 laps around the field." I bit my lip, looking at the teacher. "Sir, shouldn't students be treated equally?" The teacher gave us both a once-over and decided we should both run laps. Vincent, with his long legs, ran fast. Every time I tried to ask him something, he'd speed up as if on purpose. He finished quickly and left without a word. I had just gotten over a fever, and those 5 laps nearly did me in. A bottle of water appeared in front of me, and I looked up to see Vincent. Had he gone to get me water? Thanks. I took the warm bottle from him. After drinking, we sat on a bench to rest. "Thanks for standing up for me the other day," I mumbled. Vincent smirked. "Oh, I thought you'd thank me for something else." "What else?" I was puzzled. There was a faint lavender scent on him, like laundry detergent. It seemed familiar, but I couldn't quite place it. "If all you have is words, don't bother," Vincent chuckled as he tossed the empty bottle perfectly into a nearby trash can. "Okay, then what do you want?" "I can do something in return. Hang out with me and play video games this weekend." I was taken aback. Video games? I don't know how to play. Vincent stood up, tossed a quick, "Not my problem," over his shoulder, and walked off. That weekend, I put on a yellow coat and snow boots to meet him. When I saw Vincent, I couldn't help but smile. He'd lugged 2 computers into a restaurant booth, ready to game with me. I was a mix of amused and bewildered. "Vincent, are you serious?" He booted up the computers and casually said, "You're a girl, you shouldn't be hanging out in places like bars." I froze for a second, surprised. Vincent, the school tough guy, actually cared? "Are you just gonna stand there?" "Come, I'll teach you how to play." Vincent was a gaming pro, his fingers gliding over the keyboard like it was nothing. Meanwhile, I ended up dead over and over. He'd play the jungler, but his teammates would complain he was making a home in mid lane. Seeing I was a newbie, the opposing team started mocking me in the chat. Vincent retaliated fiercely, dragging their scores down fast. For the first time in ages, I felt truly happy. Just then, my phone rang. It was the hospital. "Hold on a sec," I told Vincent, who nodded for me to take the call. The moment I heard about my mom, tears sprang up, and I rushed out of the booth. I struggled to catch a cab. At that point, Vincent placed a helmet on my head and took me on his Ducati. I'd never been on a motorcycle before, only seen horror stories about accidents. My legs shook as I got on. Vincent reassured me softly, "It's okay, if you're scared, just hold on to me." I nodded, grabbing onto his jacket. Riding behind Vincent, I couldn't help but cry. My mom had been abused by my stepdad when he drank, left with a mountain of debt, and forced into madness by debt collectors. She was mostly okay, except during episodes without her medicine. "If you feel like crying, just cry," I heard Vincent say over the roar of the engine. "I'm fine," I lied. Vincent stayed quiet after that. At the hospital, the doctor told me a new nurse had been too overwhelmed and forgot to give my mom her medication. Fortunately, they called me, and hearing my voice had calmed her down. When I returned outside, Vincent was still there, waiting near the entrance. "Did you ever find the guy who brought you to the hospital that day?" The doctor offhandedly mentioned while explaining my mom's condition. I was stunned and then realized who he meant. "Wait, you mean it was Vincent who brought me?" The doctor nodded. "Yeah, he stayed till almost dawn, waiting for you to wake up. He left after getting an urgent." Callie turned back to look outside, smiling slightly. So when Vincent said, I thought you'd thank me for something else. He meant this. He saved me, yet never mentioned it. During winter break, Vincent often came by the hospital, claiming he needed tutoring. The yard was blanketed in snow, which squeaked underfoot. I've always loved that sound. Vincent followed behind, stepping into my footprints, acting just as childish. Vincent, my mom's not doing well mentally. I'm so worried. I leaned against a pavilion column, voicing my deepest anxieties. Your company is the best medicine for her. Later, my mom often asked, is Vincent your boyfriend? Laughing, I told her, no, he's not. Mom gave me a look, I don't believe you. She pulled out a yarn-knitted keychain from under her pillow and asked me, where's that kid Jack? Why didn't he come with you to visit? Last time, he mentioned he liked the keychain I made, so I made him one too. I stopped pouring water, almost burning myself. The doctor said Mom has memory issues and can only remember one or two people sometimes. The last time she saw Jack was during summer break. I thought she would have forgotten him by now. A sudden wave of anger towards Jack hit me. Mom remembers him like family, yet he casually joked about her illness with others. No one knows how much I want to rip their mouths apart when I hear people mocking her. After a long silence, I told Mom, Jack's not coming anymore. Mom acted like she didn't hear, just smiling while caressing the keychain in her hand. On New Year's Eve, it was snowing heavily outside. Red lanterns were hung along the streets, while a comedy show played on the hospital TV. I looked at my phone, seeing a message from Vincent. Bringing dumplings today? He asked. I replied, exasperated, Vincent, can't you see the heavy snow outside? He called right away. Even if it's pouring knives, I'd still come. No, I began to say, but he hung up on me. I waited a long time, and Vincent never showed up. As the snowfall got heavier, I worried and went downstairs to wait for him, only to find Jack. He had been standing there for who knows how long, his brows and eyelashes covered in snowflakes. When he saw me, he lit up like a puppet gaining awareness. Holding a bouquet, he walked quickly towards me. Daisy, I broke up with Alice. His eyes were filled with a desolate look, like he'd just shaved, with a hint of stubble showing. I didn't say a word. It hit me that I didn't care about what Jack wanted to do anymore. I used to like him, cared about his every look, every move. But he hurt me deeply for Alice. I don't like Jack anymore. Whatever he does doesn't matter now. He said, I figured out that I never really liked Alice. Daisy, don't you think you and Alice look similar? Alice, like me, has a baby face, but our personalities are polar opposites. You were so busy with your competition and ignored me. I was panicking. Alice confessed and kissed me. That day, she wore a white knitted vest, the kind you loved to wear when she made the move. All I thought of was you. Daisy, I finally realized I like you. It was a moment of stupidity that made me ask you to quit the competition. I told Alice about your mom, not knowing she'd spill it like that. Jack choked out these words, like spilling beans. I interrupted him, Jack, I'm not like her. What surprised me was Jack's confession. If I had heard this before, I'd have been sleeplessly ecstatic. But now, I felt nothing, maybe even a little amused. Jack forced a smile. You're right, you're not. Daisy, can't we go back to how it was? I promise nothing like this will ever happen again. Please forgive me. He raised his hand as if to make an oath. I sneered. Looking troubled, Jack asked, are you with that Vincent guy? I heard about him. He gets into fights and has a bad temper. He's not your type. He emphasized that kind of person with disdain. I replied, if Vincent's not my kind, then neither are you. Besides, he's gentle and considerate, respects others. Thinking of Vincent drew memories of him cheering me up. Jack frowned, anxious, do you like Vincent? Of course. I almost died on the roadside that night, and he saved me. He backed me up against bullies, stayed with me when Mom had her accident. And you? What did you do? I'm sorry, I just wanted your attention, Jack said, crying like a child who messed up. "Jack, do you want my forgiveness?" I asked, looking up slightly. "Yes, even if it means jumping off a building now," Jack said without hesitation. I looked him in the eyes, disappointed. "I don't need you to jump or spend nights outside in the cold. I just needed you to choose me. Some wounds, once inflicted, cannot be reversed. No matter what he does now, past pains linger." Jack's smile froze. After a long silence, he seemed to understand. "Okay, I get it. Happy New Year's Eve, Daisy." After Jack left, I called Vincent. The familiar ringtone sounded nearby, and I looked up to see a tall figure in the snow. It was Vincent. Standing not far away, his black coat covered in snow, he held a thermos. Feeling embarrassed, I approached, took the thermos, and asked quietly, "When did you get here?" "Just arrived. Why?" He said calmly. "Nothing, I'm freezing. Let's get inside." Glad he didn't overhear. After Mom ate and fell asleep, Vincent and I strolled down the street. With an umbrella over us, we passed a rarely trod alley. Vincent suddenly pushed me inside. The alley was pitch black, no lights. Someone grabbed my hand, pinning it against the wall. "You like Vincent?" Of course, I almost died on the roadside that night, and he saved me. Vincent's voice echoed in my ear, his warm breath on my neck, repeating what I told Jack. My mind went blank with embarrassment. He heard it all, pretending he didn't. "Vincent, let go. Let me explain." I suddenly felt glad that this little alley didn't have any lights. If there were, Vincent would definitely see my face, red as a tomato. Vincent chuckled, a charming and magical laugh. He said, "I'm serious. If you try to explain, I'll take it as you trying to break up with me." No way I'm agreeing to that. Knowing how he felt about me warmed my heart. Even though it was a snowy winter, I didn't feel cold at all. "Vincent, why don't you pursue me? I've never been chased before." In the past, some guys wrote me love letters, but Jack, claiming to be my brother, turned them down for me. Thinking about it, I realized even more that Jack was kind of a jerk. "Alright, can I kiss you first?" Just a little kiss. In the darkness, I couldn't see Vincent's face, yet I could clearly feel his eyes lighting up. No doubt, if he had a tail, it would be wagging like a helicopter propeller. I wanted to say something, but suddenly, someone held my face in their hands. Vincent's cold lips landed on mine without warning. When I was in college, Vincent was taking a gap year to study. He boasted that in just a year, he could attend the same college as me. Just smiled and said nothing. At a high school reunion, old friends heard Vincent was after me, and I got to know some stuff about Jack from them. Jack messed up his college entrance exams and somehow picked up bad habits like drinking and smoking. In less than a year, he developed lung cancer and ended up in the ICU. I didn't want to hear more and glanced at my phone. I had only looked away for a moment, and Vincent had already sent over 10 messages. "I'm coming to find you. Send me your location, I'll pick you up. You promised to tutor me." He said it was for tutoring, but Vincent didn't even bring any books. Half a year later, I never expected he would actually get into my college. Well, the college right next door. He complained and leaned into me, saying, "I really tried my best to study." I joked with him that life isn't a novel, there aren't so many geniuses. He got mad and went home to inherit billions. Vincent's epilogue. It was Christmas Eve, and the students in class were chattering about who was going out with whom for the night. Vincent found it annoying and pulled out his phone to play a game. After school, he had planned to meet up with his buddies to hit the internet cafe, where he normally could stay all night. But that day, Vincent was bothered. After playing only a couple of games, he logged off. "Vincent, not playing tonight?" Vincent got up and left. It was raining, and Vincent walked aimlessly along the street with his umbrella. He thought he saw someone curled up on the roadside, looking lifeless. It was Daisy, a name Vincent often heard from the principal and his dad, so much so that he glanced at her an extra time at the award ceremony. This was his first encounter with the girl. The second time was near the stadium. She was being picked on by another girl, yet she was still smiling. Vincent never forgot that moment, where the girl's eyes smiled defiantly, saying, "You lost." The third time was in a noisy classroom. Watching her being deliberately targeted and verbally insulted, Vincent was inexplicably annoyed. Without hesitation, he grabbed a textbook and threw it at the guy with the foulest mouth. How did he not notice before that the guy's mouth was as nasty as a sewer? The first time led to a second, which led to countless more. On the night they made their relationship official, Vincent held back all night but couldn't resist in the end, cornering the girl he liked in an alley.